Hello, welcome. We are going to talk today, 8M4 lesson 14, the graph of a linear function, horizontal and vertical lines. This is a lesson that sometimes can get a little bit confusing, but it's actually one of the simplest linear equation forms that we have, and or one of the simplest lessons even that we have. So hopefully I can do a good job of helping you understand it. We're going to talk about lines that are linear equations of lines that are vertical and lines that are horizontal and what those equations look like. We've been dealing mostly with lines that look like this or like this, but specifically when we talk about lines that are straight up and down vertical or straight, flat, side to side, horizontal lines, the equations become a lot simpler. So let's just see if we can understand why and how that happens. So let's cut over to our drawing pad and let's get going. So remember, we're talking about linear equations. And as we talk about linear equations, right, linear equations, these are equations that are graphed as straight lines, right? All solutions to a linear equation exist on a single straight line. And we're going to look today specifically at solutions that look like this and like this. Horizontal is flat, horizontal, and vertical. Okay, so let's begin looking at this, and let's see if let's just do a little exploration first, and let's just see what happens. We're going to draw our coordinate plane. We'll draw our coordinate plane in purple, and we will draw it like this, and then we'll draw our points that we'll map. We'll do in the equation. We'll do it in red. How about it? Okay, so let's talk about an equation that looks like this. X plus 0y equals 2. So this is kind of 1x. We'll just write that in. 1x plus 0y equals 2. And so let's create some points that make this true. Well, let's put a 2 in for x. Well, let's put a number in for y. Let's choose some numbers for y. What if y equals 5? Well, how do we solve for x? We say 1 times x plus 0 times 5. That's our y, right? We know what our y is. Equals 2. And then we solve for x. This is the same thing that we learned in past lessons. Well, this is the same as 1 times x is x plus 0 equals 2. So if y is 5, then x is 2. So that's that one. So let's do another one. What if y, so this is with y equals 5. Now, what if y equals 1? Well, if y is equal to 1, then we say, well, 1 times x plus 0 times 1 equals 2. So x plus 0 equals 2. Well, x equals 2. Well, what if y equals 10? Or let's do 8, just because it'll fit nicely on our graph. Well, 1 times x plus 0 times 8, which is our y, equals 2. So x plus 8 sorry, x plus 0 equals 2. So x equals 2. Well, if we do this for a bunch of different numbers and we keep plugging in y, what if we plugged in -1? Well, if y is equal to -1, then we have 1 times x plus 0 times -1 equals 2, or x plus 0 equals 2. We have x equals 2 again. And it turns out that whatever y is equal to, it doesn't matter. If y is equal to -3, x is 2. Turns out that x is always 2 in this equation. So let's now graph this. Let's see what this looks like. Well, we have 1, 2. 2, 5 is right here. Whoops. That's 2, 5. Let's graph 2, 1. Graph 2, 8. Let's graph 2, -1. Uh-oh, look at this. What is cool about this line? There's something really neat happening with this line. Let's go ahead and draw the line that is this linear equation. And there you have it. We have what kind of line is this? This is a vertical line. Very cool. We have a vertical line, and every point has, notice what's common about every single point. Every single point has an x value of 2. Very interesting. So we know this is a linear equation here because we don't have any exponents for our x and our y, so that's an implied exponent of 1, which makes it a linear equation. And because we have this interesting thing where the coefficient of x or y is 0, we end up with this interesting phenomenon that we have a vertical line. So let's now try. So this will be true. Now I'm just going to give you the heads up that whenever we have, the coefficient for y is 0, then we have a linear equation, and the graph of solution is a vertical line. So let's see what happens when we do the same thing, and we're going to do kind of in reverse, maybe not in reverse, but just alternately. We're going to do, instead of a y coefficient that's 0, we're going to do an x coefficient that's 0. And we're going to use a negative number and see what happens. Okay? Yeah, let's make a straight line using a real line. All right, there we go. So here's our x and our y. So let's try some x values of let's try an x value of 1, 5, -3. How about 0? We'll use 0. And let's see what happens to our y. So if x is 1, then we go 0 times 1 plus y equals -3. So this is x equals 1. So we get 0 plus y equals -3. So y equals -3. So that's x equals 1. So now let's try x equals 5. So we'll say 0 times 5 plus y equals -3. Well, that's 0 plus y equals -3. So again, y equals -3. I think you hopefully see the pattern. Well, if x is -3, let's say x is -3, what happens? 0 times -3 plus y equals -3. So we get 0 plus y equals -3. Y equals -3. So it turns out it doesn't matter what x equals, even when x is 0. 0 times 0 plus y equals -3. 0 plus y. So here we get y is -3 again. It's always -3. So let's graph that guy and see what's going on again. What do we get? Whoops. What do we get when we graph this? Well, with x's we had vertical lines when we did our x's. So let's graph this guy. Let's graph him again in green. And so we get 1 comma -3. 1 comma -3. We get 5 comma -3. Can you see what's going on yet? -3 comma -3. 0 comma -3. That's 0 comma -3. So what do we get? What is it? We get a, what kind of line is this? Is this vertical? No, this is a horizontal line. And it crosses, now notice what happened. It crosses the y-axis at 0 comma -3. Right here. That is cool. That's worthy of a happy cat. Now, let's go back one more time and let's really take a look at this, what's going on here. So 0x plus y is -3 actually is in the form that we've been looking at things in the last few lessons, but notice what happens when we simplify it. Can I simplify this equation? Well, 0x is always 0. 0 times anything is always 0. So really what I'm saying is this equation, this linear equation, is y equals -3. That's the simplified, it's the simplified version of the linear equation when x coefficient is 0. Let's go back and look and see if we can simplify this. Can we simplify this equation? And the answer is, of course we can, because 0 times y is always 0. So the simplified version of this equation is x equals 2. Now notice what's going on here. X equals 2. We cross the x-intercept, the x-axis at 2 comma 0. It crosses at 2 comma 0. So notice, an equation that looks like x equals 2 is going to be a horizontal line. We're going to cross the x-axis at 2 comma 0. Okay. Notice what happens with the y when we have a y equals a constant. When we have y equals -3, we have a horizontal line that crosses at 0, -3. It crosses the y-axis, -3. Okay, so this is the whole key. I'm going to summarize this for you real quick. So we either have the whole summary, the lesson summary is this. If you have x equals a, where a is any number, this is graphed as a horizontal, a vertical line. It crosses the x-axis. And the reason you know it's the x-axis is because it matches the x. When we have x equals a, you're going to cross the x-axis, and it crosses at, a, 0, right? Because x is a, and whenever something crosses the x-axis, it always has a y of 0, right? Because if this is your axis and you cross the x-axis right here at 3, 0, say, this point always has a y value of 0, right? We're going to get to a few examples of this here in a second. So the summary for the y, and we'll just say equals b, where b is any number, is graphed as b. It's not a vertical line, but a horizontal line. That's A. B, it crosses the y-axis, right? And you know that the y equals b, it crosses the y-axis because it's the y equals is at 0, b, where b is your y coordinate, right? It's the y coordinate because we're talking about the y-axis and we're talking about y equals b. So it will cross, say, here at 0, 5. If this is, if that's 5, this is 0, 5. And there's our line, something like that. So that's our summary. This is the whole kit and caboodle for lesson 14. Now we're going to do 2 examples. We're going to do 2 homework help examples just to make sure you really, really, really got it. This is not page 3. This is your homework help. And we're going to say graph y equals 4. Now, there's a couple ways that we can do this, but we're going to do it what might be the easy way, and we're going to go by our simple rule. We know that all lines that do not have that only have one of the variables in them, because the other one has a coefficient of 0, because this line is really 0x plus 1y equals 4, which simplifies down into y equals 4. And we showed how that happened earlier in this lesson. Okay. Now the rule is, we know that the way that I like to think of this is I like to say, well, first of all, you can pause and try. You can, if you want, you can pause and try. And if you're good enough and you were listening and paying really close attention and really understood the lesson, then you could probably do this right now. Otherwise, I'm going to just, so you guys go ahead and pause and try. If you need a little bit more help, I'm going to give it to you here. Now you have to say, is this vertical or horizontal? It crosses the X or Y axis. That's a question. Is it the X axis or the Y axis? And then where does it cross? And I'm going to show you how you know the answer to these things. So now you can pause and try, given this little piece of help over here, and go back and look at earlier in the video if you need some help doing it. And then I'll go ahead and solve, and we'll go ahead and we'll solve it in orange. No, green. Let's go ahead and solve it in darker green. Okay, so the first question is, I don't like to answer A or B, A first. I like to go and say B first. Well, and the reason I like to go to B is I say, well, this is Y equals 4. So because it's Y equals 4, I know that it crosses the Y axis because it's Y equals 4. Okay, so that's the first one. That's the first key. Now, the second thing is, where does it cross? And because I know it crosses the Y axis, I know that it crosses it at 4. So we're here on the Y axis, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it crosses here at 0, 4. And then because it's the Y, and I know that it crosses the Y axis, it doesn't go this way, it goes this way. Because it crosses the Y axis. So there we have it. So this is a graph of Y equals 4. Now, and so that's a vertical, sorry, that's a horizontal line, right? Horizontal. This is horizontal. And you take the horizontal. Okay, so the and you could have also just solved it like this, saying, well, X and Y. I could have said, well, if X is 0, my Y must be 4. If X is 10, Y must be 4. If X is -1, Y is 4. If X is 2, Y is 4. So I could have just gone ahead and graphed 2, 4, 0, 4, 10, 4. -1, 4, and then draw on the line. But if you wanted to use the shortcut method, you ask these questions. Okay, now we're going to do X equals, and I bet you know that if Y's are horizontal, then you can figure out what X's are, but let's make sure we really, really, really get this lesson. And let's say, well, we're going to graph X equals -2.5. Uh-oh. So A, is this horizontal or vertical? B, does it cross the, cross X-axis or Y-axis? And then C, where does it cross? Okay. Go ahead, pause. Let's try. Let's draw our axis, our coordinate plane. Here's our Y, here's our X. Well, because this is an X equals -2.5, I know it crosses the X axis. So it crosses somewhere along here. Because X is -2.5, I know it crosses right here. Let's choose a different color. Let's choose to do it in orange. -2.5. So it crosses at -2.5, 0. easier to read, 2.5, comma 0, negative 2.5, comma 0. And then this must be a vertical. Now it must be a vertical line going up and down. So let's make some points like this. And then let's just go bam, 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 bam. And we have our vertical line that crosses the x-axis at negative 2.5, comma 0. And we can happy cat this guy. And that's the whole key to horizontal and vertical lines. You know what? I can even go one more bonus question, and that's this. I'm going to say here. I'm going to make a quick axis, and I'm going to say this. I think some of you may guess what I'm going to do to you, but here we go. I'm going to make a line here, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 0, comma 5. I'm going to say what equation of the green line. And if you're really on the ball, you'll be able to get this. And if not, go back and look. Homework help. Go back and look and see if you can figure this out. So pause and try, and I'm going to walk you through it. How we get this answer. Okay, pause. Plus try. Okay, I assume you're back. Now the key is here, this line, the green line, it crosses the y-axis. So I know the formula is y crosses the y-axis. So I know the formula is y equals something. That's part A. B, it crosses at 0, comma 5. So I know it must be y equals 5. So those of you who got that, give yourself a big happy cat and a happy cat. And we will move on or move back to our main screen, and we will just say, what's going on here? I don't know. Our clapping's broken. Clapping is broken. So there is no clapping. I will just clap and say, good job. Horizontal and vertical lines. Next lesson will be lesson 15. And until then, have a great day. This is Mr. Lipscomb signing off.